All right. Hello. Welcome to Coach's Crew, session number 2. Today we're talking about working out on a busy schedule. I'll give it a few minutes for everybody to get here. Again, you can make comments or questions on the Zoom chat or on the Substack chat. So please join in, ask questions anytime. Disclaimers. One, I am doing this to try and get better every time. So I'm working in this space that I'm not necessarily in my comfort zone, but I am trying to show up and get better at something. And that's kind of the theme for our topic today is keep it moving. As far as finding motivation to work out, or motivation versus routine. It's really what we're talking about. Some disclaimers. First of all, I am not a doctor. I don't have any medical training other than first aid and things like that. What I do is try and provide my best advice. So if you need to see a doctor, things of that nature, definitely do that. A lot of times for my clients, what I'll do is help them make that decision. Whether or not things are lingering or they just started, the severity, what might have caused them, all these different issues. So I'll give my best advice as far as that's concerned. Nutrition. I am not a dietitian. The only person that is allowed to prescribe food is a registered dietitian. I am not that, but I will give you my best advice. With the years I have is and the experience I have. I have 30 years as a personal trainer, a full-time personal trainer with over 50,000 client hours. So I have a lot of experience working with a lot of different types of people. So hopefully I can use that to practice and help you all out. We're going to go through a few different questions tonight or today, this morning, and thank you all for showing up. So the first one is talking about um, motivation or how to stay consistent as far as your workouts. We've gotten into February now. I always say that it's funny how when we have the beginning of the year, people talk about gyms being crowded and things like that. But through my experience, I've noticed that it's actually more in February and March that gyms get a little more crowded or busy. And I think that's when the rubber hits the road for people as far as their New Year's resolutions and actually acting upon that. It's kind of like buying a car. They say when people decide to buy a car, it actually takes a while before the purchase happens. And I think the same thing with deciding to change yourself or your New Year's resolutions that take hold. There's some thought process and things that go into that. And one of those things is building a routine. So I'm going to try and share some screenshots today. This is one of my new things I'm trying to do. So we'll see how that works. Um, and I'm already struggling to do that. Oh, there we go. Share. So here we go. Let's try that. All right. And so what we're talking about is motivation versus routine. So a lot of people looking for motivation to work out or how do they get motivated to get in shape or to lose weight or whatever their goals are. And the reality is it's not so much about motivation because motivation is unreliable. Um, when motivation tends to go up and down depending on your mood or how much time you have. And what we want to do is really create a routine. So it's whether it's the same time of day or, same times in the week that we're able to be just consistent. It's not necessarily a matter of how much you do. You don't have to kill it every day. The most important thing is that you are repeatable, that you show up each time. Um, as the slide here shows, same time, same place with the minimum dose. And the reason I say minimum dose is a lot of times motivation comes once you're there, not necessarily in showing up. We want to be in routine to show up. And sometimes I find that, once you're there, that's when you're actually have more energy or more devotion than you actually thought. And let's try to share another slide here. We'll see how that goes. There we go. Share. And really the point of this, ooh, I don't think I showed it very well. Darn it. See if I can make this a little better. But the point of this, hopefully you can see it, is basically that the minimum dose is what's required. All right. When we're talking about consistency, even if we only do 10 minutes, that's enough to at least let your body know you're there, give some signals to your body, and create the consistency we need. 20 minutes is fantastic. 20 minutes will actually, get you a lot more, uh, help you to what we might call maintain. And then when we get to 40 minutes, 30, 40 minutes, then we're really talking about building and making changes to your body. But I think the most important thing is we get there and at least commit to that 10 minutes. Generally speaking, once we commit to that 10 minutes, we'll find ourselves there for 20, 30 minutes. And once the endorphins start to kick in, once we start moving, our body has a natural joy for that. And your body will release chemicals called endorphins that'll make you feel good and often will provide you more energy and more motivation and more success. So, like I said, the most important thing is just getting in there. It's kind of like me doing this podcast or Q&A. I don't expect perfection. What I'm just trying to do is get here. And by doing so, I'll improve, try and get better each time. And that's the same kind of thing with, working your body. You can't expect to completely change in one day. Progress will tend to be slow, but the consistency is what will make that allow for that. Um, so that's the basics of the kind of point I wanted to make with that is trying to be consistent. Just showing up will tend to help to lead to better things. And I think we see that in a lot of different things in life, whether it's your job or raising your children or whatever it is. Just be consistent, and things will tend to pick up from there. So I want to talk about some other questions that I got this week and try and keep this thing moving a little bit. I was told last week or last month that things were a little dry, so I want to do my best to try and keep things moving. So another question I got was whether or not you should be sore after work. I get this all the time. Soreness is not the way we judge the success of a workout. Um, Soreness is nice sometimes. It allows you to know you did work, but is not the goal. Too much soreness basically is a sign of injury. Anytime whether it's work out or sprain your ankle, it's different levels of injury or tears in your muscle fiber. When we're working out, we put micro tears in our muscle fiber, and that allows us to come back and what I call pave over with protein and build muscle, build strength. If those tears are larger, then that creates negative impact. Okay. So that's how we judge kind of with the soreness. If your soreness lasts for 3, 4 days, then that's probably too much. You've probably done too much damage. Your body should be able to recover in 3 days. So there's what's called delay onset muscle soreness or DOMS. Typically, what that means is when the body works out, you don't feel the soreness after you work out, right after you work out. It takes 24 to 40 hours for that to really kick in. And then you'll feel the maximum intensity of that soreness, which is, like I said, typically a sign that you did something, that you caused an effect on your body, adaptation. But if that soreness continues to linger 3, 4 days, then that means your body was not able to recover in proper time. And that can lead to overtraining or injury the next time you work out. So we want to make sure or try and stay kind of in that range. If you don't get sore after working out, that's okay. That's not a sign that you didn't do anything. Typically, the more we work out, the more used to working out our body is, the less likely we are to get sore. The two things that are going to make you sore typically are a change in load and a change in range of motion. So that's why they're not necessarily bad things that you get sore. Load, obviously, you're doing more weight, you're creating more challenge for your muscles. And the bigger one tends to be range of motion. A lot of this comes from doing different exercises that your body is not used to. So you're taking a load and working it through a greater range of motion. That'll typically cause soreness. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. We just don't want that soreness lingering for too long. So kind of use that as a judge. If you're sore 2 days afterwards to some degree or feel something, that's probably pretty good. If you're too sore 3, 4 days later, then you've probably done too much and maybe need to dial it back a little bit. Um, Another question we got, let's see here. What's the best way to lose weight? So this is obviously a very complicated question. Not everybody in the gym is there to lose weight. A lot of times we make that assumption, but the truth is people are there for all kinds of reasons. When it comes to weight, a lot of that has to do with the intake more than the output. If we're trying to lose weight through the output, that's generally going to be a losing battle. Typically, what do we do is we put our body on a negative cycle. If we're burning more calories than we're taking in and our body is feeling like it's starving, it'll tend to slow your metabolism down. And that in the long run will be a negative cycle. You'll have to continue to eat less, do more work to try and create the same effect. The better option would be to cause your body to burn more calories in the same amount of time or at rest. And the way we do that is stimulating through lean tissue. So the more lean tissue your body has, the more calories you burn to maintain it. The more fat you have on your body, the less calories you burn to maintain that. Fat doesn't take any energy to maintain. Lean tissue or muscle causes the body to burn energy. So the more muscle or lean tissue we put on, the more energy your body's burning throughout the day, more calories it's taking out. Um, and that makes it easier to maintain or lose weight. Anytime we're losing weight, we want it to be done slowly. Okay, you do not want to lose more than a pound a week. Generally, half a pound a week is about as much as your body will be able to absorb or adapt to without going into what we call starvation mode or slowing your metabolism down. So we always want your body working with you, being a furnace. So weight training is great for that, obviously for building lean tissue, taking in protein to help that process. The great thing about protein is that your body typically does not absorb it. Okay, your body does not like to take in excess. It won't convert protein easily to fat. Unlike other energy sources, protein is typically really not an energy source. It's to repair your body at the cellular level. So making sure you have protein, do not have an excess of fats and carbohydrates. Be consistent with your weight training versus cardiovascular training. Cardiovascular training is fine. It's good for you. It's good for your heart. It should not be done to lose weight. Okay, that is a negative effect on your body. Um, Next question. What's the difference between free weights and machines? I get this question a lot. What's better, doing free weights or machines? And what I usually tell my clients that have worked with me for a little while is, what do we do? And the answer is both. We do both free weights and machines because there's value to both, and a little bit different. When we're talking about free weights, and that's obviously machines that are not on cables or on a path, you have to control that path. So your muscles not only have to overcome the resistance, but put those weights on a proper path. So this is obviously more difficult for your body, more challenging on different planes in different ways. What that doesn't allow you to do is then just sheerly push more weight because you have to actually control it. Um, so that's why machine weights would allow you to actually push more weight or more challenge to a particular focus area. Say you're doing a bench press on a machine, you could focus just on pushing the weight, wouldn't necessarily have to worry about balance or guiding the weight. So there's just two different ways to work the body, and they cause your body to adapt in those different ways. So for someone that's just starting, machines would probably be a better way to learn a particular exercise or the pathways that you put your body on for that. Now, that doesn't mean that people don't do bad form on machines. It happens all the time. If you're doing a bench press and you're not aligning your elbows with your hands, then you put extra stress on your shoulders. If we're doing a free weight and you did that, the bar wouldn't go in a straight line. So you get instant feedback versus a machine. It's easier to kind of cheat. So again, variance is in the two different pieces of equipment. Not that one's better. but they're just different challenges. So I would recommend, if you are fairly experienced, that you use both. Okay. And like I said, for their different values. Not sure that was a great answer, but hopefully it gave you a good idea a little bit. And that kind of goes into the next question I got, was choosing the right gym equipment. Um, Generally, we want to stay within our comfort zone as far as what equipment we're using. And if we do decide to try new exercises, we want to make sure that we're having a great idea of what we're trying to accomplish, and we're using a weight that we're very comfortable with while we're trying to figure out the proper form. So, as it comes to what equipment, I would say start with the things that you're comfortable with, and then work on the fringes of trying to find other equipment that kind of challenges in a little bit different ways. Let's see what we got here. How can I improve my balance? This is a great question I get a lot of times because I have a lot of older clients and they're worried about balance. The interesting thing about balance is that's not something you really train per se. Balance comes from strength. For instance, if we're talking about children versus older adults or elderly people, a lot of times the assumption is that elderly people fall down because they lose balance. And that's not actually true. The reason that older people or elderly people tend to fall down is because they can't catch themselves when they do trip. It's not that young people don't lose their balance, it's that they're better at catching themselves when they do. You can imagine that you trip your toe and your foot form comes forward to catch yourself. If you don't have enough strength to catch yourself when you fall, for instance, doing a lunge, then you're going to fall down. So strength is the most important part of that. Now, I will say within that we can get better at kinesthetic awareness, and that's understanding where your body is in space or trying to balance yourself. So that is an element of balance. So strength and kinesthetic awareness. So doing different activities that put you in positions that you're not used to. I wouldn't say necessarily unpredictable positions, but positions where you have to adjust. Okay. So when we're doing this, we want to do it safely, especially for older people. We don't want to risk fall, but we can still use or work the muscles if we think that are catching ourselves. So exercises like split squats or squat or lunges, side lunges, working on different planes of motion than we're used to other than normal walking path would help us to not fall, or fall prevention, which is typically what people are talking about when they're worried about balance. Last question I got here is about intermittent fasting. So I get a lot of nutrition questions about different fads, different things that go on with nutrition. Um, and I would consider intermittent fasting one of those. Um, a lot of times things come into the personal training or fitness realm from high level athletics. Think of it like cars. Like a lot of car innovations come from racing. The trickle down from trying to have a car go as fast as it can for a period of time or whatever, very similar to athletes. And so a lot of times things will trickle down from extreme athletics or high level athletics and go into the kind of the normal society. And that's true of intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting really was something done to help triathletes, high endurance athletes. Um, and how it helps people, normal people, is it restricts their calories or their calorie intake. When people are not eating for a significant period of time, whatever it is in the day, they will tend to not eat as much because they're limiting the opportunities they have, which is why some people will be successful as far as losing weight with intermittent fasting, because they're simply restricting the amount of calories they take in. There's nothing magical about it. Starving your body for extra period of time doesn't make it burn more calories, burn more fat, anything like that. Although intermittent fasting was part of the idea is to use fat for energy for those high endurance athletes. Um, for the everyday person, especially the person trying to build lean tissue, I would actually recommend against it. If you're a strength sport athlete, you would definitely not want to do intermittent fasting because you're depriving your body for that period of time from building lean tissue. Um, the way protein works in your body is you don't store it. Okay? Unlike energy, which we're able to store like fat, protein, we are not able to store. So protein only has an availability of maybe 6, 8 to 10 hours. So once we eat protein, it's only going to be available for our body for that period of time. So when you're starving your body, if you're going 10 hours without eating, you already put yourself in a window where you're deprived of protein or your body's not able to build lean tissue. And then if we extend beyond that, because we maybe don't get protein into that first meal or last meal that we had, that's just continuing that period of time where your body's not able to build lean tissue. So that's why I would not necessarily recommend this, certainly not for a strength athlete, and don't generally recommend it for my regular clients. That being said, if it works for you, just like any diet, if your main goal is to lose weight and it's working for you over a long period of time, go ahead and go with it. Um, some people are okay with going long periods of time without food. Others have a very difficult time with it. And that's really individual. If you're getting cranky and not able to think and irritable, then that's probably not something that works for you. Other people, like I said, have no problem going long periods of time and function fine and find that it helps them in restricting the amount of calories they take in, which is great. So, generally speaking, when it comes to diet, do the things that work for you, right? But there is nothing magical as far as intermittent fasting, as far as a better way to lose weight. It still relies on calorie deficit in order to create weight loss. So hopefully that answers that question. Hopefully you all have a lot more for me in the future. Just want to check and make sure I don't have any more questions here right now, which I do not. So be back next month. Like I said, I'm going to try and do better every month as far as my production value. I encourage you to please hit those sources, hit me up on all the different social medias, AskCoachPat.com, AskCoachPat on TikTok, AskCoachPat on Instagram, on Facebook at Infinite Personal Training, and I'll hope to see you next month. Cheers.